Hey everybody, it's Emily, and today I wanted to talk about the benefits of reading aloud with teens. Now, everyone knows you should read with your children when they're babies, and when they're toddlers, and when they're preschoolers, and so on. But generally speaking, people tend to stop reading aloud to their children right around the time that kids can read on their own. When they're comfortably reading on their own, people just sort of hand them books and off they go. But I've always read to my teens. I've read to my kids all the way through, and now I have a 16-year-old, I have two 13-year-old boys, and we are still happily reading aloud. And I figure I'll just keep reading until they say to stop, and they never have. But why do I read aloud to my teens? I think there's actually a lot of benefits to it. One benefit is that children tend to have listening comprehension that is higher than their actual reading comprehension. So you can read more complex stories with them out loud than if they were to read them on their own. Oh, here comes my doggy. See him? Hey, Zildjian. You wanted to be in the video? You want to be in the video? Okay. So, go lay down. They can listen at a much higher comprehension level than they can if they were to be reading on their own. So I like to choose books that are just above their ability level to read so that we can have deeper conversations about what they're reading. Another thing is my boys are reluctant readers. They don't enjoy the act of reading. And my husband is also not a reader, so I think that they tend to look to him to figure out what they're supposed to do, which kind of kills me inside. I'm like, why can't you just read for them? But he's not a reader. And so they tend to think that books are just, not for them. And so I read aloud to them because it is my goal to get as much reading in as I can before they leave this house. They will be readers if I have to force down every book I can. So I read to them a ton because I want them to love books. And I also love that because I read aloud, I can choose genres that they would not normally gravitate towards. And again, my boys probably, if I left them to their own devices, would maybe read old Pokemon and Ninja Turtle comics, and that is it. Or maybe gaming magazines and the occasional music magazine, but that is about all that they would choose. But because I can do the choosing, I can pick all kinds of different genres like fantasy and science fiction and biographies and history and historical fiction, and I can expose them to so many different things. And I love that I can do that, and that by doing that we have discovered different things that my kids really love that they never would have come across otherwise. I love that because I read aloud to them, we can have these big, deep conversations that go through those big ideas like racism and sexism and suicide and death and, class warfare and making good choices and making bad choices and the consequences of that. And those things can be something that we read about and discuss a character doing, rather than a mom lecture where they're gonna completely ignore what I'm saying and it just blows over their head. So I love that we can have conversations about characters that they love and care about and want to follow or emulate or not emulate, as the case may be, and that we can discuss those kinds of things in a comfortable setting. I love that I can read them books that have a much richer, deeper vocabulary than a book that they might choose on their own. They'll be able to absorb all these big words that they normally wouldn't either skip over, because don't we all do that? If you're reading a book and there's a hard word that you don't know, you just kind of glaze right over it and or mispronounce it. Oh God, that's even worse. How many of us have gone through life pronouncing words wrong because you only read them and never heard them, and people are like, what are you talking about? And yeah, I hate that. So I love that I can read aloud to my kids and they can hear the words correctly, or as correctly as I can say them. I love the family bonding we have through reading. I love that I can share those books that I love with my children so that we can have those shared moments and memories and inside jokes. And we always quote books. And that's one of my favorite things about being a mom is that I can do that. I can share those things with them and we can have those moments together. And that is what reading aloud is for me. It's a way for me to share part of myself with my children. Because when I read a book, that book becomes a part of me, especially if it's a book that I love. And I love that I can kind of hand that down to them. And that is a way to guide children into becoming readers. You know, it's one thing to just hand them a book and say, here's a book that I really like, enjoy. And another to share it with them in a more intimate way, that where you are like giving the story to them. And that's probably my favorite thing about being a mom. So I just wanted to quick show you guys some of our favorite read alouds that I have shared with my teens over the years. And really, we've read tons of books, and I'm just going to show you some of my very favorites. We spent a couple of years ago, reading the entire Harry Potter series, and this was just my favorite year ever, I think. We read every book, and then we would read the book and watch the movie and compare what we thought, what they left out, you know, what we wish they would have been able to show and things like that. And the boys just wanted to see the movies. They had no interest in the books, but that was my compromise. You can't watch the movie till you've heard the book. And so they greedily and happily listened away, and we read all the books in a year, and it was just awesome, and I loved it. And another book to movie series that we've read was The Hunger Games. And again, this is such a great read, but also so great for discussions about meaty topics like how far is too far with reality TV, and how do we not become obsessed with media and celebrities, and how do we not become Pan Am, basically, and, you know, overthrowing governments and, you know, revolutions and all of those kinds of things. And it's just, I loved it. It's great for discussion. And another thing with my boys is they are not overly fond of books that they think are going to be girly, which to them is a book that has a female protagonist. And we have read a few books where I just stopped reading it because it was like they're not even listening anymore because it's too girly for them. So I try to find books that have strong girls and like The Hunger Games, but also like A Wrinkle in Time. And I love this book so much. And I love that I was able to share it with my boys and that they got something out of it. And even my daughter, she read it to herself when she was younger and didn't like it, which disappointed me. And we read it again, and I think she got more out of it this time, hearing it out loud. And I just dropped it. And we also read aloud The Evolution of Calpurnia Tate by Jacqueline Kelly, which is so fun to read aloud. I mean, I loved reading it in my head, but getting to say all those accents out loud, and she's just such a witty, spunky character. I just loved reading that. That was really fun. And the Southern accent. And I read this book, To Kill a Mockingbird, with my oldest when she was, I want to say, 14. And again, fun Southern accents to read aloud. But another great book for dealing with racism and that kind of stuff. And it's just, that was such a great read, too. A book that I read aloud last year. This is probably our favorite read aloud of the year last year. Watership Down by Richard Adams. If you've never read this, don't let the bunny on the cover scare you away. This book is so good. I know when I was in the 7th grade, my teacher made us read this, and we had to read it to ourselves, and I freaking hated it. It was stupid, and I just didn't get it, and I was just so, like, I was too mature for this kind of stuff. Why were we having to read about bunnies? And I just dismissed it. And I picked it up again as an adult, and I read it, and I was like, this is the best book I've ever read. What in the world? How did I miss this in 7th grade? But yeah, this is also beautiful to read aloud. It just kind of flows. It's just, oh, it's so good. And even the Lapine, the made-up rabbit language, is fun to say. Another that I would highly recommend as a read aloud is Shakespeare. If you're going to do Shakespeare, read it aloud. And take turns. Each of you take parts and, you know, read back and forth. And before you start a Shakespeare, I really recommend reading a children's retelling. And I just happen to have this one. This is the Leon Garfield Shakespeare stories, which I believe is out of print, but you can find children's retellings of Shakespeare pretty much anywhere. They're easy to come across. Read the retelling first so that your child or your teen understands the plot, then read it together in play format, then watch it. And that's the best way to do Shakespeare, I think. Yeah, so that's my video about reading aloud with teens. I hope you enjoyed it. Do you read aloud to your teen? Or do you plan to? And what have been some of your favorite books to read with your teen? I'd love to hear about it because I'm always looking for new book ideas. We're always reading something. And I'd love to hear what you guys are reading. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Happy reading. Bye.